The fact of the matter is our schools are soft targets, and especially when students are congregating before or after school. We know that the Parkland shooting took place after school during busing and dismissal. So we need to do a comprehensive security survey of all of our campuses across the state. And I want local law enforcement to conduct those surveys so that, again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about doing a critical needs assessment. As a former police officer who's proud of my service, I also support the idea of school resource officers working in our schools. Ms. Hoffman, in a tweet that I'm assuming is still on her Twitter feed, said on August 3rd, we should not increase school resource officers because we know, quote, discriminatory practices don't stop at the schoolhouse door. That was a direct slur against law enforcement officers, suggesting that somehow a school resource officer would discriminate against minority students. As a former law enforcement officer, I know law enforcement officers are colorblind in the way they perform their duties, and she really ought to apologize to the law enforcement profession for making that demeaning comment.
Ms. Hoffman.
First of all, no one is colorblind. And discrimination can exist in any corner. It can exist in this room, it can exist in a school. We know from data, we know from research and evidence that our students of color and our special education students are punished at a 4 times greater rate than typical students. We know they're punished by losing their recess time. They have in-school suspensions. They are expelled at a much higher rate. And so to say that we should be colorblind and that there's no discrimination in our schools is shocking, in fact, coming from someone, coming from anyone with that type of experience. And when I hear about expanding SROs, my question is, where's that money going to come from? Who's going to pay for more SROs in our school? Does that mean if we're hiring 10 more SROs that we're going to fire 10 teachers? We don't have the resources or the funding to have an SRO in every school, and we know as a country that the cost of school safety has been drastically increasing to the point where we, in 2017, spent $5 billion on increasing school safety measures. So I propose that we have more counselors and social workers to address the mental health needs of our students.
Mr. Roos.
Well, so put our students and educators at risk because of a political bias against law enforcement. As someone who pinned on the badge, who took the oath to protect and serve, and who performed my law enforcement duties day in, day out, willingly putting my life on the line, confronting and arresting some very bad, even evil people, in a few situations, active shooter situations, I take great exception to the suggestion that somehow I had some sort of a bias as a police officer. And by the way, my wife was a police officer too. The fact of the matter is, school resource officers receive specialized training and how to work in a school environment. And the studies have all shown, contrary to what Ms. Hoffman's suggesting, she's citing one ACLU study, so let's go with the ACLU, but the objective data has shown that school resource officers have a proven deterrent effect. A uniform presence on a school campus is a proven deterrent effect. Furthermore, school resource officers, because I worked in schools as a police officer, can be role models, mentors, kind of, if you will, informal teachers and counselors. And again, they have a proven effect in reducing drug use and in reducing absenteeism and recidivism. To suggest somehow that school resource officers are bad, again, as far as I'm concerned, just shows a political bias against law enforcement.
Ms. Hoffman.
Let's bring it back to the classroom. One of my former students lived in a foster care home, and the first time I met him, he showed me bruises on his arm and told me that his mom does not love him. We have students who have been experiencing high trauma, whether that's domestic abuse situations or violence in the home. We have students across our whole state we have a fifth of our students living in poverty. What every school needs is a counselor, because it's our teachers that are the first ones to recognize signs of anxiety and depression. And we also need to address bullying in the schools. We need to address teen suicide and make sure that our children do not have access to guns in the home. I would much rather look at our comprehensive reforms to look at how can we make sure all of our kids are safe, no matter if they're in the school, in the classroom, or whether they're at home, or whether they're at the movie theater. We need to look at this more broadly, and again, make sure that every school has a counselor. That is a much greater need.
Did you just come out in opposition to the constitutional lawful right of an adult to own and possess a firearm in their home?
I said there should be safety measures.
No, that's not what you said.
That is what I said.
No. Well, let's go back to the tape. No, you said that An adult citizen
That's not what I said
should
at all.
not have the
He's putting words into
constitutional
my mouth.
lawful
That's
right.
not what I said at all.
Well,
That's
I-
completely false. I talked
believe-
about making sure our kids do not have guns in their hands shooting themselves or shooting others.
That's the
a
respon-
completely different situation.
And guess what? That is the responsibility of the parent,
Yes,
not
it is
school.
the responsibility of the parent.
Right,
That's
so-
what I'm talking about. We
so
need
I-
comprehensive reforms,
I believe this
not
is my
just
time.
school SROs. Well, you
I believe
asked me
this
a
is my
direct
time.
question.
I know, and I let you respond.
Okay.
Briefly, both of you briefly.
But I believe
all I have to
this
say.
shows a clear contrast between us. Okay?
Absolutely. We don't need a
Yes.
police officer leading our public schools.
Okay, this
Okay.
question, moving forward, I have one question just for
I'm
each
not a
of you.
police officer currently, but I'll take that as a
I have one
compliment.
question just for each of you separately with no opportunity for rebuttal here. So
Okay.
let's try not to, don't,